Not gonna lie, that made me jump a tiny little bit. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am Molly, and in this video I am going to be reacting to the album Mutter from the German band Rammstein. Now for a long time now, Rammstein is a band that has been recommended a lot in my comments. A lot of you seem to want me to check out their music, and so I recently put a poll up in my community tab here on YouTube asking which Rammstein album I should listen to first, and by a pretty wide margin, Mutter, their third studio album, came out on top. This is definitely going to be an interesting album for me to listen to because I don't know German, so lyrically I'm not going to be able to pick up on anything, but just from a musical and tonal standpoint, I'm really curious to see what I'm going to think of this album. So yeah, let's get right on into my reaction to Mutter by Rammstein. Alright, so starting off with Mutter, we have track 1 called Mein Herz brennt. And remember, I'm not fluent in German here, so bear with me with the terrible track name pronunciations. Quite a symphonic sounding start to this one, but then you have these vocals that are really kind of dark and ominous. Okay, now they're infusing some energy. There's like this creepy undertone to this track. I love when this chorus comes in with such that punchy delivery. Then you can just hear it's like slowly building up. There's all these smooth layers they keep adding. Track 1, Mein Herz brennt. I really loved how beautiful that was, actually, with the stringed instruments going on, especially toward the start and on the more restrained portions of that track. But then on the chorus, they brought this much more hard-hitting, aggressive sound, and his vocals just were so deep and ominous. I loved it. But moving on now to track 2, we have Links 2, 3, 4. I like how they use that sound of like an army marching as a percussive element on this song. This one definitely has more of a heavier industrial tone to it than the first one, but I still love how they're really using the vocals more subtly on this one to kind of give it this really restrained, eerie, creepy tonal quality. Like on these verses, his voice is so menacing sounding, but in a really subtle way. Okay, and now toward the end here, they've got like this kind of chorus sounding element to the vocals coming in. It's giving it more of that softer sound again. That was track 2, Links 2, 3, 4. The percussive element on that one was really cool, how it started with, it sounded like an army marching in rhythm. And again, kind of an eeriness to that one, especially on those verses with how they kept the vocals way more restrained and pulled in. Just a really sinister sound to that one, but then they would build it up into the chorus and they would bring more of that energetic impact. Moving on now to track 3, we have Sonne. Kind of like the start of this one. It's actually reminded me of Wisconsin Death Trip a little bit. They're doing a lot of stuff sonically, like behind the instrumentals on this album, that's just giving it these little infusions of an industrial sound. This one is really soft here on the chorus. There's this really beautiful orchestral sound to it. These really angelic vocals that they're infusing from time to time are beautiful. They're really complementing this song. That was track 3, Sonne. I think that's my favorite on this album so far. They fused that really kind of gentle, smooth, melodic sound with their more hard-hitting, borderline industrial sound so incredibly well. At times, Rammstein is actually reminding me a little bit of System of a Down on this album, in how like System of a Down does that extremely well too. They fuse the melodic with the aggressive so incredibly well, and Rammstein is doing that just as effectively on this album. Moving on to track 4 now, we have Ich Will. Okay, clearly I mispronounced the name of this track. Those vocals are back. Those really beautiful, angelic sounding ones. They're infusing them on this one too. This song's got such a grandiose sound to it. And there's like these ambient sounds of a crowd singing along, like a call and response between the lead singer and a big crowd of people. And then throughout this whole track too, there's like this little electronic sound too that they're infusing on it. Track 4, Ich Will. I loved the delivery on that one. It just had this great punchiness to it and like this really sharp back and forth rhythmic pattern. That track too, Ich Will, had this great atmosphere to it. It sounded like they were performing it live almost, like in a big stadium. It had this really great grandiose sound to it, which I thought was really cool how they did that. Moving on to track 5, we have Feuer, frei. Not gonna lie, that made me jump a tiny little bit. It almost sounds like a fire truck, this sound effect they're using. Doing some crazy stuff on this track. I'm loving all of the sound effects that they're using.
Bang, bang, fire, fire. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. Fire, fire. Bang, bang.
That was track 5, Feuer, frei, I think is how he was saying it in the song. I clearly butchered the pronunciation of that at the start. That one was awesome. I think probably the most energetic impact of a delivery on this album so far of the 5 tracks I've heard. I liked the sound effects with the little electronic things they were doing at times. And it sounded too at the start like it was a fire truck going by. That was just the sound it reminded me of. All right, and then up next we have track 6, which is the title track, Mutter. Quite a different start compared to that last track. This one's starting off very restrained and toned down. I love the guitars on this whole album. I'm noticing them especially on this track. Like they're taking the really restrained melodic element of this song and they're kind of giving it a little bit more of a rock edge. And again, there's such an expansive sound to this album. It's almost like a live performance, like if you were seeing them play at an arena or something. That was track 6, the title track, Mutter, if I'm saying that right. So beautiful and yet again symphonic sounding with its delivery. It's interesting too that they put that one right after the previous track, which I just said was like the most energetic, impactful one on this album so far. And then that one, Mutter, was probably the most restrained and melodic with its delivery, although they still had that great intensity to it. Moving on now to track 7, we have Spieluhr.
Kleiner Mensch stirbt. Das kleine Herz stand still für Stunde in der Hand.
Yeah, you guys will have to help me out in the comments with some of these lyrics.
Als der Frost ins Kind geflogen, hat es die Spiel.
There's like some really subtle electronic elements that they're putting on this album every now and again. I love them. Almost reminds me of Crystal Castles, kind of. Yeah, they're doing some really fun, subtle stuff, like behind the vocals and the instrumentals.
Am Totensonntag hörten sie gerettet.
Yeah, you see what I mean about this guitar? It's just giving this whole album just like slightly more intensity to its tone. It kind of balances out the melodic parts really well. That was track 7, Spieluhr, if I'm saying that right. I loved the little infusions of electronic stuff that they were doing. They're keeping it really subtle though. Like, I would not say that this is an electronic album, but they're definitely using a lot of electronic elements to kind of give it this really unique tone at certain points. Moving on to track 8 now, we have Zwitter. This one's off to a fun start. His vocals are just so ominous. This is definitely another track on this album that is going a little bit harder with its delivery. That bass has a great tone to it. And then we've got this great guitar again. Track 8, Zwitter. Great punchy delivery to that one. Just a really fun one to listen to. That little section there toward the end where it got really quiet for a minute, where you could really hear the bass and that was emphasized. I loved that part of the track. That bass was awesome. Up next we have track 9 called Rein, Raus. The industrial elements are really strong on this one.
Ich bin der Reiter, du bist das Ross. Rein, raus, rein, raus, rein.
Yeah, those little vocal distortions and stuff that they're putting on from time to time, I just love. Is that like a harpsichord or something? It's kind of what it sounds like. Track 9, Rein, raus. That was a really creative song. I liked how they were fusing so much on that, and it started off so heavy and dense and industrial sounding. It reminded me a lot of, again, Wisconsin Death Trip by Static X, or even like the Broken EP from Nine Inch Nails. And then that track just morphed into something else toward the end. They brought in more of that acoustic sound with the stringed instruments, and then with the sprinkling of like electronic vocals on there from time to time too. They're throwing some electronic elements on here. But moving on now to track 10, we have Adios. Is that some very faint like screaming or vocalization going on in the background? Is this like an electric guitar? It's really cool sounding. I like this part. The lead singer's vocals, I love how he almost whispers them. There's just like this really dark, ominous tone to him. Track 10, Adios. That one had fantastic percussion to it. I really, really liked that element of it. But I liked how that track started off a little bit more subtly, and then it definitely took a turn there. It was very unexpected, like roughly halfway through, how they just started to incorporate that really like weird sounding electric guitar sound effect. I don't know if it was actually a guitar, but it just changed the track up. It definitely surprised me. All right, and moving on to the last track on Mutter, we have track 11 called Nebel. It almost sounds like some synthesizers, maybe, that they're using here. Okay, and now they're drawing back in that more melodic sound. Yeah, this track you can really appreciate the instrumental layers that they use to build the song up, and how all the elements work together really cohesively. That was track 11, Nebel, the final track on the album Mutter. Such a beautiful, symphonic way to bring this album to a close. I really liked how they started it off so electronic sounding. Like I said, it almost sounded like they were using a synthesizer. You could just really appreciate the layers on that one, how they were building that track up, and then bringing in the really melodic stringed instruments there again toward the end. Just a really smooth, flowing sound to that song, which I absolutely loved. Well, that's officially going to do it for my reaction to Mutter, the third studio album from the German band Rammstein. This album was not exactly what I was expecting. I kind of went into this reaction anticipating a slightly more heavy, borderline like nu metal sounding album, and although Mutter definitely had that at times, I think they embraced a more melodic side to their sound, and certainly a more atmospheric electronic side than I was expecting, but I really enjoyed it. Track 3, Sonne, was definitely a standout for me. It was a great example of how they fused kind of that softer sound with their harder, more aggressive sound. Also, track 7, Spieluhr, was really fascinating to listen to. I loved the electronic stuff they were doing on that one. And also track 9, Rein, raus, was a standout for me. I just really liked the industrial tone of that one. But yeah, thank you all so much for recommending this album to me. Now I have finally heard some Rammstein, and I definitely look forward to diving more into their albums and seeing what else they're going to deliver with their sound. But yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video.